eyes on electric bike. I actually went the other day to look at an electric bike. Not an electric scooter like motorcycle, but an electric bicycle. There's a store here in downtown Reading that sells them, and they're about, I don't know, $3,000 to $2,500 to $3,000, depending on what you're getting and the size of the battery. I mean, they can go up to, I think, $5,000 for a pretty powerful battery motor. And the reason I started to look at it was I was reading a blog by someone in Reading who rides motorcycles and has begun more and more to ride their electric bicycle around town. And they started to list all the reasons why they were making the shift. And a lot of it made a lot of sense. Not that I think I would ever stop riding a motorcycle, but for a lot of town-to-town, in-town commuting, there are so many trails, bicycle trails, and there are so many paths that you can take on a bicycle that cut through the city that aren't accessible by a motorcycle. For instance, in the heart of the town, in the heart of Reading, are all these parks, and connecting the parks are all these bicycle walking trails. And so, you know, to get from one point of the city to another, I mean, literally might take less time on a bicycle than it would on a motorcycle. You add the benefit then of putting on a motor for those hills that are just, you know, maybe difficult to climb, and these electric bicycles can go up to 30, 40 miles per hour easily. You kind of have a no-brainer. There's no registration costs, there's no gas costs. You can still get a good physical workout because it is a bicycle. And then when you, say, come to a hill like this and you're tired of pedaling, you just twist the throttle. Yeah, there are some roads like this where it might not work because, you know, the speed limit's 55. But I'd say the majority of the roads in the city are 35 miles per hour anyway, and there are dedicated bicycle paths along the side of the road. Obviously, this one doesn't because it's a main highway leading to I-5. But you get the idea. It's what intrigued me. Now, if the price was lower, then I would definitely pull the trigger. But to buy a brand new bicycle for that much money, all I can think of in my head is that I could buy another used motorcycle for that amount. But I had to think about the cost. I had to think about registration and gas, and you know, I love going on bike trails with my mountain bike, and the model that I was looking at was an actual mountain bike. So you could have a very nice multi-purpose bicycle, one that you can take on the trails, on dirt roads, single tracking, and then, you know, you could use it to commute around town, and then you have a motor to help you on your commute. So you know, everything in Reading is literally 10 minutes away from each other. And so, you know, the only reason why it's not a 100% no-brainer for me is because I rarely commute on my motorcycle, because I'm usually going somewhere with my wife. We're both in school together, and she's not yet comfortable riding on a motorcycle, so we take the car. And if I were to get a bicycle, well, there is absolutely no option for a passenger on a bicycle. The other reason is I have to pick up my kids after school, and so there's another reason why commuting doesn't work. But in the case where I potentially get a job and I'm just commuting to and from work, that's something I would definitely consider. Now, a motorcycle is, a lot more fuel efficient than a car, but a bicycle would be the ultimate. Again, the only reason why I wouldn't, there is no real reason why I wouldn't. In the summer it does get hot, like 110, 118 degrees, so maybe in those cases I just wouldn't want to be outside, even on an electric bicycle. But for the most part throughout the year, it's very pleasant to ride, and even more so if I'm not having to break too much of a sweat, because there's an engine on the bicycle. So those are kind of my thoughts. We'll see what happens, because again, I just went and checked it out for the very first time, so whether or not I pull the trigger is a entirely different discussion. That is definitely one thing that I don't like about Reading is it's a good and a bad thing, but every light every intersection is pressure censored, which means they're not, most of the time they're not on any sort of timer. So even during rush hour traffic, the main roads, you know, if there's a lot of traffic going along the main road, you would think it would stay green to allow the traffic to kind of flow through. But because the intersections are pressure censored, if a car pulls up at the intersection, just for that one car, the light will turn green. So it just, I mean, it's probably just because Reading itself was such a small city, and it over the past 5 years has just really exploded in population, and which has affected traffic. But it's definitely a nuisance when I'm driving, and especially when I'm on the bike. Like at that light, it wasn't until a car pulled up behind me that the light turned green for me. And so a lot of them just aren't calibrated. Jeez, that bug is gross. The bug just nailed my windshield, my face shield. Most of the intersections aren't calibrated for the weight of a motorcycle, which is a real big pain. Sometimes I'll be there for a long time waiting for a car to pull up behind me, and then I'll just have to do a huge roundabout, turn right, turn left, come back the other way, just so that I can get to where I need to get going. So it's definitely, I think, something that is great sometimes, because when there's no traffic and you pull up to a light, you know it's going to turn green for you. But it's terrible because you're driving on the road and you see a car pull up and you know that you're going to get stopped because they're going to get a green light. I know. First world problems. Just happy that I'm out around on my bike. This weather is gorgeous. It's getting a little hot, a little warm, but I got a mesh jacket on without any insulation, a hoodie, and a t-shirt, and I'm perfectly comfortable. See, this is an instance where on a bicycle I could have just cut through. Instead of having to drive all the way around. And that's one of many examples.